Confession. That's not exactly a word that us Protestants use very often. Nor is it a word that, frankly, many people invite or enjoy. To confess a wrong done by us. To confess sins done by us. I mean, honestly, even confessing things that have happened to us is difficult. And yet confession is this incredible moment of grace. An incredible moment of cleansing. Not so that God can draw close to us, but so that we remove barriers from our perspective towards God. Isaiah chapter 6 is the text I'd like for us to look at together this week. Isaiah chapter 6 is this powerful passage of Isaiah's commissioning. I mean, it's almost lyrical. You know, in the year that King Uzziah died, Isaiah says, I saw the Lord high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. The sin on the earth does not prevent God from being present. It prevents us from being able to engage him clearly, from us being able to respond to him clearly, from us drawing near to him. Verse 4, at the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. And then Isaiah responds, Woe to me, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. Now this is what's interesting. Isaiah confesses here that he is sinful, but it is not Isaiah's sinfulness that kept him from the presence of the Lord. It's actually Isaiah's sinfulness that is coercing and compelling Isaiah to run away from the Lord. You see, our sin does not keep the Lord from us. It keeps us from the Lord. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I find very fascinating. Because typically what we have is we have Isaiah in this scene. There's 2 primary verses. The woe is me text. Woe is me, I am ruined from a man of unclean lips. That's very familiar. But so also is familiar verse 8. It says, Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And Isaiah says, Here am I, send me. Here's my question. What shifted? I mean, what changed? Isaiah is in the same presence of the Lord. He's in the same situation. But Isaiah in verse 5 is crying out, Woe is me. But here in verse 8, Isaiah is crying out, Here am I. What shifts the narrative from woe is me to here am I? Answer, verses 6 and 7. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. With it he touched my mouth, which my first response is, ouch. And he said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. You see, the only difference between woe is me and here am I, the only difference from running away from the Lord to choosing to run with the Lord towards his calling, is the removal of sin. It is the atonement of the sin. But I intentionally brought up the word ouch, because the way in which the sin is pulled away is through a live coal. a burning ember that even the seraphim picks up from the altar with tongs so as not to be burned, and he touches it to Isaiah's lips. And yet it is the removal of sin that breaks down the barrier of the Lord. Here is the thought I want us to wrestle with this week. Confession is never easy. Confession of sins done by us is frankly an incredibly vulnerable and incredibly brutal moment. But it is the lack of confession that is rampant in our churches that is not keeping God from us, but is keeping us from Him. Many of us look down on ourselves and are burdened with the weight of our sin simply because we do not purge it through confession. And so we go to the Lord and we cry out, "Woe is me, for I am ruined and a man of unclean lips." There is a way to cure that. It's through allowing the Lord to pull it out of you through confession, so that then you can start to advance His mission by crying out, "Here am I." Here's my challenge for you this week. Don't run away from the sin that you have done. Do not hide it in the darkness, entrusting darkness with something that only should be entrusted with the light. Because when you avoid confessing sin, you actually put up a barrier between you and the Lord. Not one that keeps Him from you, but one that keeps you from Him. Instead, go through the painful experience of confessing your sin so that you can move from "woe is me" to "here am I." I love you guys. Have a good rest of the week.